In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, a lot of legendary and mythical Pokemon have been buffed. This video will be spoiler free of new Pokemon, but it may cover one or two new moves. Both Urshifu forms now learn Swords Dance. They finally gave Zamazenta Body Press. Arceus can now bulk up, Dragon Dance, and so much more. Rayquaza learns U-Turn. Galarian Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos can now learn Tailwind. Regidrago finally has Earthquake for its Dragon Dance sets. They gave Spectrier coverage with Draining Kiss and Psychic. And Eternatus finally has physical moves for its Dragon Dance sets. Let's take a closer look at all these buffs in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So Rayquaza was buffed with U-Turn, Wild Charge, and Stealth Rock. I'm looking at U-Turn right here, and I really like it for Ray. So previously, a lot of Rayquaza sets were Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, mixed with Life Orb like Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, Dragon Ascent, Extreme Speed type of thing. And maybe the occasional Choice Band if you go far back enough in generations. U-Turn really makes something like Choice Scarf and Choice Band Rayquaza a lot better because basically the things I'm thinking of that are very common in Ubers or where legendaries play, something like Necrozma Dust Main, you can U-Turn as it comes in and then bring out like an Iron Defense Magnet Rise Magnezone, beat it 1v1, allow your Rayquaza to click its Extreme Speed and click other moves, Dragon moves maybe a lot better. Same thing if you force in a Fairy type like a Xerneas, you U-Turn out, you get some momentum out of that. So I really like it. I really like it for Choice Scarf sets too. Wild Charge, it's alright. I mean, if you look at the tier where Rayquaza is allowed, where like all the legendaries are, and this is not saying that these legendaries are going to be there, but it basically just hits Kyogre, which is a good one to hit, while also hitting Ho-Oh. Your Flying Stab already did that anyway, and Dragon Ascent is super strong. I don't know if Rayquaza actually gets Dragon Ascent in this game when it eventually comes back, but because we don't know how exactly home moves are going to work, right? They said they might not come back with it, so they're pretty much nerfed, but it's still a decent option. I think you'd run literally anything over it, though. U-Turn, Earthquake, Extreme Speed, +1 is better. And then Stealth Rock is interesting because this is really cool on like an offensive team, right? Because you could definitely take advantage of Stealth Rock, lead Stealth Rock, Draco Meteor, Fire Blast type of thing, and then Extreme Speed maybe if you want to beat like an anti-lead for like a Spikes Deoxys, or I don't know if Deoxys is in the game, but actually it shouldn't be in the game, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. But just in general, this is a really cool idea for Rayquaza because you get up your Stealth Rock, you guarantee live a hit because you're Focus Sash, and you do some damage back. I really like this buff for Rayquaza, and I think it's just nice. Now strap in, sit down and get some popcorn because this Arceus got, I mean, Arceus, however you want to say it. Let me know, you know what, little question, how do you say Arceus? How do you pronounce it? I say Arceus, I know a lot of people say Arceus. I just want to know how you pronounce it. Let me know down below. And also, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I'm on my way to 400K. That's my end of next year goal. And y'all can help me get there. I'm uploading so much Pokemon Scarlet Violet content. We got the official release real soon. I'm hyped. Now, Arceus got so many moves. We're gonna go through the big ones. They're all pretty big. But Arceus got access to Dragon Dance. Beautiful, right? The ways that Arceus set up before were Dragon Dance, and it was like, it was Swords Dance and it was Calm Mind. Those were typically the setup Arceus sets. Dragon Dance means that not even Choice Scarf Pokemon can deal with you. It also means that Marshadow cannot revenge kill you with something like Close Combat because Marshadow is faster than you and it can hit you with a super effective low kick or Close Combat if you are running this Arceus type. That's not to say, you gotta remember guys, Arceus can run the plate. I also think Legends plate is in the game, but I'm not 100% sure. But if it's not, I mean, it can run any type, right? You have the Iron Plate become Steel type, Dragon Dance up, and then you can just, it just boosts your attack and your speed. It's a huge buff for Arceus. It's just something crazy because it makes every single offensive Arceus, it just makes better. It literally makes them all better. On top of that, it also got Bulk Up, which I think is another pretty big one that Arceus ended up getting. Bulk Up is nasty too. Again, Swords Dance was its way of boosting its attack before. And Bulk Up just allows you, it had Home Claws too, but never used that because it had Swords Dance. Why would you ever run Home Claws when you have Swords Dance? Especially with E-Speed Arceus, you're not going for any moves that can miss. You have Earthquake, Extreme Speed, and Shadow Claw, right? So Bulk Up is pretty nasty too because Arceus also obviously has access to Recover. Now Recover did get nerfed, only 8 PP instead of 16, but with Bulk Ups, you're able to set up on things setting up on you. By that I mean the example of, let's say, a Dragon Dance Rayquaza trying to set up in front of you. You're also bulking up. You're faster than it for the first turn. You bulk up, and then the second time you bulk up again, you're getting your plus your defenses and your plus speeds before you extreme speed with your Arceus, right? So this is definitely something that could be pretty crazy. It also lets you hit hits from Groudon better, from Necrozma, basically just physical Pokemon. On top of that, one thing that this can do that Swords Dance can't do is bulk up, especially with some HP and defense EVs, can set up on Foul Play. Because Foul Play will always be doing consistent damage from like a Veltal, just because, and I think you have to be really defensive for that specifically because of its Dark Aura ability. But Foul Play will only do the same exact damage every single time because as long as you're both bulking up your attack and defense at the same time, it does less. So crazy. So those are those, right? Those are the initial setup ones. Now Arceus also got Taunt. They gave one of the greatest Pokemon in the game the option to stop, and let me tell you what Taunt stops from Arceus. It stops Calm Mind setup Pokemon like Kyogre, Swords Dance or Rock Polish Pokemon like Groudon, Dragon Dance Zygarde, Leech Seeds from Ferrothorn, Hazards, Defog, everything. This is crazy that they ended up giving Arceus Taunt. I cannot stress how big of a move Taunt is for a Pokemon that has 120. I mean, it's Arceus, man. It's the greatest, one of the greatest Pokemon, if not the greatest Pokemon of all time. Right, it's up there with like Mewtwo and I guess Zacian and Mega Rayquaza. Like they're just some of the greatest Pokemon of all time. And this mon being able to stop you with Taunt from doing stuff, it's just annoying. It's annoying. It does not stop there though. It does not stop there. All right, let's see what else this mon got. This mon got access to Healing Wish. So not only can Arceus recover for itself, but it can now help its friends out too. Healing Wish, for those that don't know how that works, is you basically sacrifice yourself. And it says illegal, but don't worry about that. None of that stuff matters. You basically sacrifice yourself, and by doing that, you can restore another Pokemon as long as they have HP. They can't be dead. As long as they have HP. So if, let's say you have a Landorus Therian, or just a Landorus in general. Your Landorus is at 5%. You switch it out. Bring out Arceus on like maybe, I don't know, any attack. You go for Healing Wish, Arceus dies, the turn continues to go through, so if your Arceus is faster than the opponent goes for attack that doesn't hit anything, and then you send out your Landorus, and it basically gets back to full HP. So it's amazing. I don't know what sets particularly will Arceus run with this. Maybe on more hyper offensive teams. Like if I'm Arceus, I'm not, but I guess I'd be controlling it as the trainer, right? I would run something on E-speed sets like Swords Dance, Extreme Speed, Earthquake or Shadow Claw or whatever, and then just if I'm running like an offensive team, I run Healing Wish to support another Pokemon, because why the hell not? Now I'll get my damage off, and if I'm not going to kill the opponent with a move, I'll set up something else. Imagine me Geomancing up with Xerneas twice, because I'm able to do that. So other crazy moves that Arceus also got in its move pool. Let's just talk about coverage right now real quick. So you have Hydro Pump. Pretty cool. It's better than Surf. It's not really better than like Judgment, obviously, from Water Arceus, but you don't have to be Water Arceus to run Hydro Pump, so that could be pretty cool. Just doing like some good damage to Ho, Groudon, even in Sun, it'll still do some good damage. Oko, Lantern, still does have Ice Beam. So it's just a pretty interesting option right there. I don't think it's like the greatest thing in the world for Arceus, but I think it's really, really cool. They gave it Gunk Shot. Again, pretty nice because previously only Arceus's poison moves were like Poison Jab, so you can run a Swords Dance or bulk up Arceus Poison, and this is pretty cool because Arceus Poison can't be poisoned, right? So you can run like a bulk up Gunk Shot set with Earthquake, and you basically can beat things 1v1 and get that crazy stuff like that. Heavy Slam is also a really nice one, just giving physical Arceus better stuff than using Iron Head. Though I don't know how good Heavy Slam would be in Ubers per se, but we'll see. They gave it Hex, so Arceus Ghost, it could run something like this if it wanted that Hex instead of Judgment. I think Judgment's still better overall, but even though it's just slightly weaker than Hex, because Hex is doubled when you're status, but it's still pretty cool. I think these are some of the craziest ones that they ended up giving Arceus. So they gave Arceus Stored Power and Body Press. Now, if you didn't know, I don't know if Arceus gets it in this game coming up, but Arceus got Cosmic Power, right? So this is a set that Mew runs. And Mew runs Stored Power, Body Press, Cosmic Power, Recover with a Weakness Policy, sometimes a Lumberry. So just imagine you go for Cosmic Power, you got your +1 defense, you got your +1 special defense. Something like Marshadow comes out and clicks Close Combat versus you. You're not going to die. You're Arceus and you got +1 defense. You get your Weakness Policy activated. Shout out to Weedle to Needle. And you go for stored power, you knock them out, and now your stored power is insanely strong because stored power gets stronger and stronger the more boosted you are. And your body press is strong too because you're boosting that side, so you're hitting the dark types that you wouldn't normally hit with stored power. So it just gives Arceus these other options that are still relatively insane. And then other cool things, Power Gem is interesting. I don't think Power Gem is that much of a big difference, except if you want to use it on Calm Mind Arceus to KO. Maybe like an Arceus that's weak to like a Veltal, but also you want it to be able to deal with Ho-Oh. So Power Gem just gives you a way of dealing with those. And when obviously you could Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, whatever you want, super effective, stronger moves than Power Gem versus a Veltal. But Power Gem being 4 times effective against something like Ho-Oh, and Ho-Oh is one of the most annoying Pokemon out there. If anybody has ever played versus a Ho-Oh, they know, especially with Regenerator and everything. So Power Gem is there. They also gave it Foul Play. I think Foul Play has some merit on defensive sets. Something like Dragon Dance Pokemon can't set up as easily on you, just because you'll be doing damage if they keep boosting. Gave it Hurricane as well. I don't know how good Hurricane would be, because if I'm using a flying move on Arceus, it's typically because I'm Arceus flying and I have the 100% accurate judgment, so I don't really want to think too much about that. And the last move I have here on this list is Imprison. Now this is interesting. If I could spell, this would be very interesting. So the way Imprison works is that any move your opponent has that you have, they can't use it. They're locked, right? They're locked. Now, I don't think Arceus gets block exactly. It does get Whirlpool though. So, well, it did. I don't know if it still gets it in this. It hasn't right here, but I don't know if it still gets it. But the idea is that you could transform into another Arceus and stop them from doing moves. And considering how good Calm Mind is going to be, Judgment, Recover, this is a viable set because you can win the Calm Mind war versus opposing Arceus. When Arceus is allowed, Sword and Shield didn't have Arceus, right? It was a completely different Ubers. It did not have Arceus. When Arceus is allowed, though, Arceus is king. Arceus is king, and it's not just Arceus normal. It's not just, you know, it's Arceus Fairy, it's Arceus Water, it's Arceus, especially if Judgment Plate is also allowed, right, and things like that. Legend Plate, excuse me, is also allowed, and even if it isn't, it's still king. So being able to imprison your opponent, then just win the Calm Mind War right off the bat, because your opponent cannot use Calm Mind, Judgment, or Recover. They will literally be forced to struggle, means that Arceus has another tool to beat Arceus 1v1. So that's what I'm saying. This is one of the hypest ones that we have, because it's just so freaking good. All these moves are basically insane buffs for Arceus. But yeah, I'm excited about that. Also, if you guys want to pick up Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you want to support me, I do have Best Buy affiliate links down below. Literally buy anything via those links, not just Scarlet and Violet. Buy anything via those links to support me. So I appreciate y'all. Been, you know, I see a lot of y'all buying Scarlet and Violet. I'm happy. I hope we can all battle when I do my streams. So on to the next one. So Dialga now has access to Trick and Focus Blast. Focus Blast is interesting. Obviously, it's just good versus steals. It's not like the greatest move when it comes to Ubers, specifically because it's not going to be hitting too much in the tier. But I think it's still a nice move if you run it like on choice specs, because you'd run like Draco Meteor, Flash Cannon, and then if you want something that can hit Ferrothorn, right, but also hit Heatran if that's the mon that's used, Focus Blast is a good, it's a good alternative, right? So this isn't bad, right? You can also run obviously Fire Blast too, and the only reason I'm saying Flash Cannon is because of fairy types in the tier, but you don't have to. But getting Trick is really nice because Trick allows you to get rid of your item and cripple opposing Pokemon. I could see something like tricking like Ho-Oh, that way it's locked into whatever move it is, especially if you're Choice Scarf. Ho-Oh doesn't always like Choice Scarf if it's not offensive. Tricking a setup Pokemon like Calm Mind Kyogre, so it's locked into Calm Mind, or maybe it goes for Ice Beam versus you and you can take advantage of that. Pretty big option for Dialga. It just gives it more on its offensive move pool. Already something like it has crazy stats that it is. They all do. They also gave Palkia Trick. I really like this because Palkia is one of the few Pokemon, especially in the rain, right, that very few Pokemon can come in on choice specs. Rain boosts a Hydro Pump. Spatial Ren is there too. I hate 95% accurate moves almost as much as I hate 90% accurate moves because they'd be missing and it's like, yo, what happened? But like something like this is super strong. Thunder, Fire Blast as well for Ferrothorn or anything like that, steals. Something like this is incredibly strong, right? Rain boosted Hydro Pumps destroy Pokemon like Xerneas. You have Spatial Rend, potentially Draco Meteor, and then being able to trick something like a Blissey. Blissey's like one of the few Pokemon that can actually wall this, and you lock Blissey into Thunder Wave, Softball, whatever the hell it went for, means that Palkia can still have a field day, even if Blissey comes in, because remember, Blissey cannot infinitely heal versus Palkia because they nerfed recovery moves. So, really, 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 really nice for Palkia. I think it's a big buff for offensive Palkia. And it also means that Choice Scarf Palkia can also trick setup mons too. Now, Enamorus, whoops, wrong one. Eternatus, sorry about that. Eternatus got Outrage and Gunk Shot. It has a few other moves as well, which I'll talk about in a second. But the reason why Outrage and Gunk Shot is so good on it, or not good, but it's good that it got the buffs. Not that it's necessarily good, right? It has base 185 attack versus 145. Now, this is Enamorus, and we're looking at it from a Sword and Shield point of view. If you look at it, it does have access to Dragon Dance. Now, let's look at all the physical moves that Eternatus, wow, man, I'm so sorry, guys. Eternatus can go for in Sword and Shield. So, Dragon Tail. So, you Dragon Dance up, and then you get the minus speed to force out your opponent. Poison Jab, nice 80 base power move. We have, looks like I'm done, but let's look at the usually uses moves. Assurance, Brutal Swing, okay, Cross Poison, whatever. Fly, nobody's using that. Poison Tail, 50% power. Payback, 50 power. And it's also a very fast Pokemon. So basically, there was nothing that really took advantage of Dragon Dance very well. But now you have a strong moving Gunk Shot. And again, when you're fighting with this Pokemon and you're fighting Pokemon that are also just as bulky, if not bulkier than this Pokemon, you want power, right? You want power. So Gunk Shot is amazing. And Dragon Dance, Outrage, and then you can run like Recover or whatever the hell you want as your last move. It basically just gave Eternatus some options, and I think it's nice that this Pokemon can actually use Dragon Dance and actually get something off with it. The other thing they gave this thing, so I'll write the next few moves. So we have Fire Blast, and I'll talk about why that is actually a really big buff for this Pokemon. And then you also have Sunny Day, just whatever, and then Fire Spin, which is interesting. So you have Fire Blast. Now, you might be thinking, why the hell does Fire Blast matter, right? This Pokemon already gets Flamethrower and it gets Mystical Fire. You would normally be right, but Flamethrower and Mystical Fire are just shy of 2-hit KOing something like Necrozma Duskmane, which is one of the very common switch-ins to Eternatus, right? It is one of the very common switch-ins to Eternatus. So the switch-ins to Eternatus in this tier are Ho-Oh, potentially, Necrozma, Duskmane, and then, of course, Yveltal. Those are basically the switches in that tier. That's basically the entire tier. That's all that switches in. And because Flamethrower, even from an offensive one, does not 2-hit KO that Pokemon, it's pretty big that it has Fire Blast now, because now it has that extra power from Flamethrower to actually be able to 2-hit KO. So more offensive, like Life Orb sets can be crazy with, like, Fire Blast. I don't know if Dynamax Cannon is in the game. I mean, it's a signature move. It better be, but they get rid of signature moves all the time. And then your Sludge Bomb or Sludge Wave, depending, and then Recover. So pretty big. Just you trade the accuracy for power, but in a tier or in a metagame where Pokemon are so bulky, whether you're playing VGC, whether you're playing singles, whether you're playing Battle Stadium singles, a 3v3, in metagames when this eventually will be allowed, you want that extra power, in my opinion. So pretty big for that. Sunny Day, I don't think it matters too much. It just gives it options to boost its Flamethrower if it wanted that. I do like Fire Spin though, and let me explain why I like Fire Spin. Fire Spin is trash. I know. Let me explain why I like it. It's trash. Now, Fire Spin is okay because it allows you to trap your opponent. So, if let's say a Pokemon that can come in on me very easily and then doesn't appreciate being there. So something like, let's say my opponent brings out Necrozma, right? Or honestly, really anything. But I trap it with Fire Spin. Not only do I trap it so they cannot switch out after, but I'm getting chip damage turn per turn because Fire Spin, hits you after the turn ends as well. So I'm doing this damage, and it allows me to kind of decide what I want to do next without my opponent having very many options. The only options my opponent has is, like, normally there's so many options per turn in Pokemon, right? You can switch. You can pick one of your 4 moves. I guess you can... Things could happen IRL too, but that doesn't really count. You can switch to one of your other Pokemon. Sometimes it's 6 Pokemon, or 5 other Pokemon. Sometimes it's 3 other Pokemon, etc. Too. But in this situation, my opponent can only go for one of their 4 moves, right? If they're Fire Spin, they are trapped. And I have the ability to potentially status them with Toxic. Now, I think Eternatus would be one of the few that still has Toxic because it learned it naturally, if I'm not mistaken, so it should still have it. But it just basically lets me do what I want, and whether that's attacking or switching, and my opponent's forced to stay in. And once you know what your opponent, like if your opponent's stuck there, right? If my opponent has a Pikachu out and I have a Water type out, there's a good chance they're going to go for an electric type attack if they predict me. So I can switch out into a ground type or something that could take that attack, right? And kind of similarly to what Eternatus could do. And then Heatran got a small little buff. This actually would have been a lot better in Gen 6, in my opinion, but it got Power Gem. So the reason Power Gem is cool is because it's stronger than Ancient Power, 60 versus 70. Power Gem would have been really nice. I think it's going to be good in National Dex. If you guys know what the National Dex tier is, basically, not every Pokemon is always coming back in the games. That's something that's just happening now. And I guess, I don't know if we accept that or not, but that's basically what's happening. I'm just telling you how it is. So in National Dex, Pokemon like the Mega Pokemon are allowed, right? So you'll see Mega Charizard Y a lot. You might even see an occasional Talonflame. You'll see Volcarona. So on a Choice Scarf, Heatran, Ancient Power is relatively weak, but Power Gem, that 10 base power stronger is good. It's like the original Hidden Power, right? 70. So instead of the 60 that we have and that we don't even have Hidden Power now. But so it gives us just little options versus that. And then it doesn't have to run like minus attack Stone Edge, especially if it's like special attack invested. So it's pretty cool on like Choice Scarf sets. Maybe this one specifically I was thinking National Dex when I thought it was a buff for Heatran. But besides that, it didn't really get too much else. Diancie finally has access to Spikes. I don't know why I said finally, like it should have always had it. I guess maybe because it's a rock, and I don't know, they've been giving Spikes to like everything but ground types. But then this generation, they're like, nah, we're going to give it to ground types. I love Spikes on Diancie. Diancie's typically a lower tier Pokemon. It's not really used super often, but where it is used, it's pretty good. Usually you'll see it as a flying type check. And like you'll see something like Diamond Storm, Body Press, and then either Heal Bell here or Moonblast or anything like that. And you see like Stealth Rock sometimes. But Spikes are just better. Rocks are great, right? But everything that's weak to rocks, for the most part, runs the item Heavy Duty Boots. So they're not going to be taking damage from rocks unless you go for knockoff. And this generation has way less knockoff than we've had previously. There are new Pokemon with knockoff, but a lot of the old Pokemon have lost knockoff. So Spikes is nice because a lot of Pokemon that come in on Diancie are going to be like ground types, going to be like steel types, and they take more from Spikes than they would from Stealth Rock. So you're basically just able to chip things down. I really like that. Mewtwo. Mewtwo got a few things. It got Earth Power. I like Earth Power a lot on Mewtwo. And it got Power Gem. Now, this one, Earth Power, if Heatran becomes something very common and you want to be able to hit that, you want to be able to hit Necrozma Dustmane in one. You want to be able to hit Magearna. Whatever, just like Pokemon, basically Zekrom all in one. I think Earth Power is a pretty cool option on Nasty Plot, giving Mewtwo the ability to just overcome certain threats. I think specifically Heatran is the big one, right? And I kind of feel like that mon would be used just because it's a good mon. It's a good mon overall. Now Power Gem, I actually like Power Gem a lot on Mewtwo. You want so Ho-Oh typically runs like a physically defensive set, and it's just naturally bulky on the special defensive side. It has such insane HP that it could take a +2 Life Orb Side Strike from Mewtwo, and obviously it takes like the Ice Beam and Fire Blast that it has as well, neutral Ice Beam, resisted Fire Blast. Power Gem is cool, and the reason why Mewtwo has to run Ice Beam is mainly for Yveltal. But Power Gem's cool because it gives you the KO on Ho-Oh at +2, and it also gives you a very strong hit versus Yveltal while not just missing out on flying types in general. So very big buff from Mewtwo. Both of these I think are good, and while they might seem circumstantial, I think that they will see play depending on the metagame, but I do think that they are very valid options. Cresselia. So, Cresselia got this move in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and you guys know I'm talking about legendaries and mythicals. Even though, as I grew up, everything was legendary Pokemon to me. I still consider them legendary Pokemon. What do you got for you? I don't know if y'all do. But it has this move called Lunar Blessing. This was, I believe, in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, the way it works is, and it's been retconned, it cures status for itself and its ally Pokemon in battle. That's basically it. Like it's a 25% heal for itself and also its ally Pokemon. So it heals and then it also gets rid of status. So Cresselia, a lot of ways that people would beat common like Cresselia would be like poisoning it, right? Or thunder waving it and praying that it gets full paralyzed. Or now if I'm using Lunar Blessing, it's kind of like jungle healing for Zarude, except this one actually works on your teammates too. Pretty cool for doubles. Now they did nerf Cress a bit, and I think that's because it's just been so dominant in every meta it's in when it comes to like VGC and 3v3. So specifically VGC. So they actually got rid of 10 base defense and 10 base special defense. So instead of 120 defense, 130 special defense, it has 110 defense and 120 special defense. That's a pretty big nerf because Cress could easily EV itself to like not be too shot by things, and now it's going to take either more EVs or anything like that. I don't think it matters too much for Combine variants. I feel like they're still going to be very bulky if you end up running this, and it's still going to be annoying for opponents to take down, especially because this generation actually has a lack of Toxic, and the fact that Cress can now heal its status moves without going for something like Psycho Shift or resting up is big. I think it's still pretty big. I talked about Enamorus in a previous video. I also talked about Groudon and Landers, so we're just going to get through them super quickly, and then we're going to go through more Pokemon. I just, they are legendaries or whatever, so I want to make sure they have that. So they gave Enamorus Superpower, which is great with Contrary. So instead of lower its attack and defense, it raises it. And Focus Blast is amazing for the Nasty Plot sets. We knew this Pokemon would get Superpower just because all the other Therians and birds, or genies, excuse me, I was forgetting what they were. They all got Superpower. So we knew this Pokemon would get Superpower, but now it's confirmed, which is pretty cool with Contrary. A lot of great things you could do with that. Groudon, it's a ground type, and they decided to give ground type spikes. Hell yeah, it's about damn time. Great. Amazing for Groudon. Typically your Stealth Rock now could be a Spiker. I already talked about why I like Spikes more than Stealth Rock a little bit, and especially in this metagame as well. They gave it Will-O-Wisp, which is beautiful. You can cripple something like a Veltal coming in on you, like a Zygarde trying to set up on you. It's basically anything that could come in and try and set up on you. Not a lot can set up on Groudon, but now you can go for Will-O-Wisp and actually status them. They also gave it Rock Blast, which is pretty cool for like Ho-Oh and just in general. Like, it's better than Rock Slide most of the time. And it's also stronger than Rock Tomb, and it also, doesn't miss like Stone Edge. So, pretty cool. Other thing is Body Press, and I didn't catch this the first time, but Groudon does have access to Bulk Up. I actually use Bulk Up Groudon, I forgot about this, but Bulk Up is pretty cool because now you can use Bulk Up plus Body Press. It might be a really decent option actually to be able to deal with something like a sub Bulk Up Body Press set, to be able to do like on a Veltal, or just in general, just boosting your defense. I like that a lot. And they give it Crunch too, which is a good option for like Giratina if you're running like an offensive Swords and stuff. Like Giratina Origin Form specifically, because it has Levitate, so it will be immune to your Precipice Blaze or Earthquake. But you could always run Dragon Claw as well, and Dragon Claw would not only hit Giratina, but also Rayquaza, etc. So they're just an option. And then they gave Landorus, both of them. Well, they have Earth Power. I don't know why I was putting Earth Power here, but I was just thinking about the set I'd run. But they give a Nasty Plot. Again, something that the other genies have. Pretty broken for this one, though, because it does have Sheer Force, and it boosts its best move, Earth Power. And if you don't know, if a move has a secondary effect, it's boosted by Sheer Force. And because this actually combos with Life Orb, because if you go for a move like Earth Power, you do not take Life Orb damage because it's being boosted by Sheer. Like, the Sheer Force is nullifying the effect of it, but you still have the boost. So pretty big for Earth Power, Psychic, Sludge Wave, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave, whatever you want to do. Both Landers can do it, and I think it can be good on both of them as well. And also they gave it Taunt, another thing that the other genies have, so it's cool that it does have Taunt now. I mean, I just think Taunt offensive sets can be cool. Taunt Nasty Block can be cool. Taunt Lead with Focus Sash, with Stealth Rock U-turn type of thing could be cool too. Just to stop setup, just stop recovery. But just some great options. Like I said, I went more in depth with these in my ground type video. Just check that out. And also I talked about Enamorus in another video in the Hisuian video, so you can check that out too. Galarian, Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos all got Tailwind. Pretty big, I think, for Articuno and Zapdos specifically, because they have competitive to take advantage of the Intimidate, especially in VGC, where I think that's a lot more common, as well as Battle Stadium singles. It's common in OU too, because, or 66 because of Landorus, obviously, but you had Incineroar back then for them. I don't know if Incineroar is in the game, but you still had Incineroar, which was like one of the mainly used mons. But I like Tailwind, just giving them options to support the team, and they just have good stabs, right? And this mon has Hurricane, and then it has its Freezing Glare. Moltres has really good stats defensively, and Dark Flying is pretty good, especially in tier like VGC, where there's no, or metagame rather, like VGC, where there's not really Stealth Rock present, so you don't have to really worry about taking that 25%. I know this thing would commonly run like Weakness Policy at times, or even Life Orb. In the Dynamax metagame, can't do that anymore, no more Dynamax. But I like Tailwind a lot too, because it allows you to run something like Nasty Plot plus Tailwind instead of Nasty Plot Agility, so you don't just boost yourself, you boost your teammates. I think on more offensive variants, it can be really cool too. And just, again, supporting your teams in VGC, I think they're just good options to have, and I'm excited to see if they actually end up doing anything. Now, Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie all get this one new move from Pokemon Legends Arceus, and It's in this game now, and it had a little bit of an effect change, but it's still very good. So Mystical Power is a 70 base power special move, 90% accurate, and it guarantees raises your special attack by +1 every single time you use it. So it's an attack that raises your special attack by +1. Think of Meteor Beam, except less chance to miss, if I'm not mistaken. I think Meteor Beam is 85. I don't know. Meteor Beam feels like 0 sometimes, except for that one video when I was actually trying to miss it. But Meteor Beam feels like 0 sometimes. But you're able to go, and this I think really, really is crazy on Mesprit and Azelf. But you go for your Psychic move. It's 70 base power at first, but you're raising your special attack +1 every single time, guaranteed. So unless you hit like into a dark type, right? So like if I'm an Azelf, and let's just assume I'm Choice Specs Azelf, right? So let's just run Choice Specs and let's run Mystical. Let's call it Mystical Power. My hand was all the way off on that keyboard. Mystical Power, right? You got your Flamethrower or Fire Blast. On Choice Specs with Azelf's 125, I'd probably run Flamethrower, right? You got your Dazzling Gleam because you want to hit the dark types. And then from there, maybe Energy Ball or Grass Knot, depending on what you want to do. So this would be like potentially a move on Choice Specs, right? You can run Shadow Ball here too. I have it, or Thunderbolt, depending on the metagame, whatever, right? So you run this move, and you might be thinking, well, why not Psychic? Well, you guarantee get a +1 on top of your Choice Specs, right? So this is super strong because Steel types cannot resist you basically after the first hit. Let me show you a damage calculator, show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's put Azelf there. Let's put the Nasty Plot set that they have here. Let's get rid of that and put Choice Specs. We'll make this Psychic. We'll make Psychic 70 base power. I'm just trying to give you an exact scenario. And that's Psychic versus, let's go just the random Steelix, defensive Steelix. So that's defensive Steelix. At first, you only do 22 to 26 as it comes in. But then your next time, you're boosted +1. Then you do 33 to 38, right? And maybe Steelix decides to go for Stealth Rock because it knows your Choice Specs for whatever reason. So you did your 22 to 26. Let's just assume you did 26, right? And then you go +1, and let's assume you did 35 because of that, right? And then you get +1 again because of that, and now you're doing 44 to 52. So basically, you can 3 KO Steelix, depending on rolls, depending on leftover spikes, hazards, and stuff like that. But that's over 100% damage, right? That's over 100% damage. So it's just pretty cool because it just means that you can actually wall break with this Pokemon. I think on Nasty Plot sets as well, it's pretty scary too because you already Nasty Plot boost your special attack. Really nice for Azelf. I want to know your guys' thoughts on that. Obviously, Mesprit can do something similar with Choice Scarf sets, can do something similar with Calm Mind sets as well. If it really wants to, just has that strong move for that. And then Uxie, I think, takes the least advantage of it, especially because Uxie is just typically known to be a bulkier Pokemon that sets up screens, sets up Stealth Rock, Mementos, sets up Trick Room, U-turns out, maybe Trick plus Choice Scarf type things, and the occasional Calm Mind. But when you run Calm Mind on Uxie, you run like Draining Kiss and Stored Power. So you really want that anyway, right? It just allows you to beat Dark types and allows you to beat other ones. But it just gives you an option, especially if you play, let's say you play Pokemon Draft, which is where people actually draft Pokemon, right? And they can only use these Pokemon on their teams. They can see other people's Pokemon. And maybe you could use this to potentially run like a more offensive Uxie, right? Because it's really fast, 95 speed. So after a Nasty Plot or after a Calm Mind, it's decently strong. It's decently strong. So Regidrago is a Pokemon that is known for not having coverage, right? Like if you look at its actual coverage on spec sets, it basically ran Draco Meteor, Dragon Energy, Dragon Pulse, and Ancient Power to hit like Togekiss and maybe Fairies for a little bit of damage. So it didn't really have any coverage. And it also had a Dragon Dance set, but Dragon Dance would run Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, or Outrage, and then Fire Fang, which is whatever, relatively weak versus Steel types. And that was basically it. Explosion would be like one of your options too. But now they've given Regidrago Earthquake. And this is really big for Dragon Dance sets because now you actually have a good, one of the best moves in the game. And, you know, base 100 isn't bad. You actually have a good move to take advantage of that. And you can run like Outrage with a Lumberry. And if you don't, you can also run Explosion still too, which would let you hit Fairies. Or you can run like Thunder Fang, depending on like what Fairies you're trying to hit, like Togekiss or something like that. So pretty cool. I like this. They also buffed the special set by giving it Earth Power, and I think this is actually better, right? I think this is overall a better buff to talk about. So Dragon Energy is basically Water Spout. The more HP you have, the stronger it is, and it's pretty crazy because Dragon Maw also boosts your stats, like your offensive stats is multiplied by 1.5 when using a Dragon type attack, so it becomes incredibly powerful. And it only has Dragon type attacks, but now you cannot go out to something like Heatran to wall it, which barely walled it to begin with. I will say it barely walled it to begin with. The more important thing, besides knocking out Heatran in one hit with a choice specs, is that you actually have consistent damage versus even resistances like fairy types. Like, I'll take Tapu Fini as an example. Not that I say it's in the game or not, I don't know. But a Tapu Fini, and these are just examples from like Sword and Shield, because I am familiar with a lot of Pokemon that are and are not in the game, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not, we're not in that meta game just yet. We're about to be. I'm so hyped for that. But just doing like 30% with a choice specs Earth power versus doing like 20%, maybe less after leftovers with an ancient power is pretty crazy. Like 20% with H power versus 30% is pretty crazy, especially when you consider Stealth Rock or Spike. So it's just a really good move, and it actually lets Regidrago hit steel types, even though it was still massacring them with Draco Meteor and Dragon Energy anyway if you had a choice specs. But I'm happy about that. Regieleki, a few things. We got Charge Beam. Cool, has a way of raising its special attack. Again, another mon that incredible ability, right? The same thing but with electric and did not have coverage. But in this game, obviously, the biggest buff that Regieleki can have is Terra Blast. And I don't talk about Terra Blast a lot in these videos. And when I will be doing moveset videos day one, so Friday, definitely expect that. I'll still be doing discussion videos too because I think they're very fun to do. But Terra Blast is probably one of the biggest things you can do for Regieleki, right? And I mean, you're going to go with like Ice. You probably go like Terra Blast Ice, right? Or you're terrestrializing. You basically terrestrialize and you get this 80 base power move that's special or physical depending on what your EV spreads are. We're going to be running special attacks, so it would be special. It'd be essentially a mini Ice Beam, right? And you can obviously knock out Landorus, you'll knock out Garchomp, you basically knock out the ground types, and then you still have your electric stab because that's how terrestrializing works. So that's probably one of the bigger buffs, and it actually means that Charge Beam is pretty good too because Bolt Beam coverage is basically undefeated, right? Nothing is immune to both except for like Shedinja, right? You usually, it's like the universal coverage that you have that is basically neutral coverage on everything for the most part. There are some exceptions. Like Shedinja for one, but yeah. So Thunderbolt plus Terra Blast Ice again. One of the Regieleki. This is crazy for Regieleki. Assuming Terra Blast is allowed, so Regieleki would probably come out with Pokemon Home, right? And I think it'd be crazy for like VGC and Battle Stadium, and not as insane for singles because that for singles it all depends on if terrestrializing is allowed or not. Now Spectrier took a page out of his book from his uncle. What would you consider Calyrex to its friend riding on its back? Whatever the hell it is. It's from a benefits. That's what Calyrex Ice and Calyrex Shadow are. They're friends with benefits. The benefits are you become a demon. You become an absolute unit. 150, 165, and you get coverage. But they gave Spectrier coverage. Now, a little bit of backstory on Spectrier. If anybody's actually, if you're watching this far and you are not like subscribed to me or haven't been subscribed to me in Sword and Shield, I would love for you to say who you are just because. First off, thank you for watching this far in the video. I know this is a long video, but also I'm gonna give you a little bit of backstory. Spectrier got banned from 66 singles. Now let's look at Spectrier's coverage real quick. All right, it's a special attacker, so we got a new special move. So we got Dark Pulse, okay. Still looking. Obviously we have Nasty Plot for the setups. As you can see, the boy got nothing. It got absolutely nothing. So you basically run Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse, Shadow Ball, this. Sometimes you'd run Will-O-Wisp and sometimes you'd run Hex. And if you ran Choice Specs, I'm super serious about this, you would run Hex, Shadow Ball. You'd usually run it with Toxapex or something. You could still run Will-O-Wisp on your set too because your Hex becomes stronger 130 base power. And sometimes you'd see Mud Slap. Or Mud Shot, excuse me. Mud Shot as a way of dealing with Heatran. Mud Slap would be so disrespectful. But Mud Shot as a way of dealing with Heatran, 4 times effective damage. And then occasionally you see Dark Pulse just for coverage. So basically it has no coverage. That's what I'm trying to say. And this Pokemon got banned with this moveset. And with Nasty Plot leftovers. It got banned. Because of its Grimnay ability where you get +1 every single time you get it. It's a Moxie boost. Basically for special attack. Now, it could not hit dark types, and it got banned in a metagame where Urshifu single strike. I'm sorry, it's been a minute since I used that mon because I have Rabbit Strike where I play. but the dark type, one of the best offensive dark types ever, was allowed in this year. And now they're like, you know what? You should be blessed with coverage. So they gave it Draining Kiss. And Draining Kiss is huge. Because let me tell you what Draining Kiss does. Draining Kiss lets Calyrex Shadow Rider destroy Pokemon like a Veltal and actually be able to beat Dark type. So it gives it a chance. So they gave it Draining Kiss. And on top of that, they also gave it Psychic for some added coverage too. So overall, huge buff for, I think, mainly the Nasty Plot sets to get scarier. Obviously, Choice Specs get scarier too, because if you're 4 times weak to, if you resist, you know, Ghost, but you're like something like Dark Fire or even just Dark types in general, like this, Draining Kiss is 50 base power, but you have 145 special attack. On top of that, you get +1s every single time you knock out Pokemon, and on top of that, you have Nasty Plot to potentially boost too. And this is pretty cool too, because Draining Kiss gives you recovery, so if you're using sub Nasty Plot, sub taking some of your HP, you're able to get it back, and you know, and also deal with the Pokemon. So crazy buff for this month. Both Urshifu, another crazy buff, get Swords Dance. They're gonna get banned in singles. They're gonna get banned. Both of them. We have Rapid Strike right now, and that mon's still pretty crazy. And then Single Strike got banned, but they're gonna get banned. Like from in the metagame I play, they're gonna get banned. Otherwise, you'll be able to use it everywhere else, right? As long as it's not restricted, you'll be able to use it everywhere else. But Swords Dance is good on this one because this one can just run Swords Dance. Wicked Blow always crits. Sucker Punch has a priority. You can run Drain Punch. You could run Close Combat. Shoot, you could even get away with Wicked Blow, Sucker Punch, Iron Head because you don't necessarily need to run Close Combat. If you have a +2 move that can crit, you're going to destroy Steel types anyway. So you're going to destroy normal types anyway. So crazy buff for this mon. Definitely a lot. It also means that in the Ubers tier, which is the tier where, you know, the legendaries end up, it can actually use that Swords Dance to actually muscle through. Whereas right now it's okay. Like sometimes people use Banded because that's one of its better ways of doing things. But Swords Dance is crazy, especially for Sucker Punch priority. And this one also has a critting move, Close Combat. And then it can run, Aqua Jet isn't as good with +2 even just because it's not strong enough to knock out faster Pokemon usually. Like for example, +2 Urshifu or even neutral Urshifu will knock out Dragapult, but Dragapult obviously resists Aqua Jet, so +2 you might do 50%, but you're not knocking it out. However, it could run something like Thunder Punch for like Toxapex and definitely beat it 1v1. Right? You can't even do anything like Baneful Bunker or Protect versus Pokemon because of its Unseen Fist ability going through that. And it can run Ice Punch for Dragonite and stuff, but it doesn't really need to at that point because first off, it's bulky enough to take a hit from Dragonite. Secondly, it's a +2 move that is always critting. So it's just crazy. It's crazy. Like both of these mons are going to be, in 6v6 singles, both are going to be banned. That's it. They're both going to be banned. There's no way that either of these mons stay. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think they'd be banned at this point? It just makes Urshifu too much of a threat. Like you don't gotta run U-turn anymore. I can knock out Corviknight with +2 like Surgery Strike, +2 Life Orb Surgery Strike, +2 Life Orb Close Combat. Not to mention there's an item in the game as well. I'm not gonna talk about it in this, but there's an item in the game that benefits Urshifu even more too. But I'm not gonna talk about it because I only said I'll mention moves that, or potentially one move that, and actually is it on Zarude that is new. So Zarude gets Swords Dance, which is big because before it only had Bulk Up. And Zarude, if you didn't know, has really good stats, like 105 speed, 120 attack. It had Bulk Up, which is it's kind of slower at setting up, right? You are boosting your defense though, so it means you can take on physical attack as well. Like even with a 4 times weakness to U-turn, this mon after a Bulk Up or 2 could tank U-turns just because it's 105 HP, 105 defense. Like it is no slouch on defensive. It's a good stat distribution, but Swords Dance allows it to boost that even higher. Obviously you have your Power Whip here. It didn't get knocked off, unfortunately, but you know, it has moves like Close Combat, it has Power Whip, and I don't know if Darkest Lair is its natural arsenal, or was that something we gave it after. But if it is in its natural like move pool, then that's great. If it can't use that because Darkest Lair it's out of the game, it can still run Throat Chop, I believe. So this is still really good with that base 120, and it becomes an even better offensive threat. Like after a Bulk Up, you can sometimes 2-shot Pex, but you don't always. But with a Swords Dance, Life Orb, Power Up, you're knocking out Pex. You're able to really threaten Pokemon defensively like Corviknight, and you're just a better wall breaker. You're a wall breaker. You're just that, right? You can run Boots on it. You can run Life Orb, whatever. Obviously, Jungle Healing can work too. Though if you are running Jungle Healing, I feel like that's just a little bit better, unless the tier you're playing isn't good versus Grass plus Fighting coverage, because then maybe they have no Flying types in the tier or whatever. But Zarude can kind of just become this insanely dangerous wall breaker. right? And I think it's really sick. And now this is the other move it gets. So it gets this move called Trailblaze. And Trailblaze is basically Flame Charge for grass types, right? So it's 50 base power, 100% chance to raise your speed when you hit with them. So it's a little bit weaker at first, but you can definitely run something like that on Zarude easily and just mean that it can't be like taken out by Choice Scarf users after. So that's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty big buff for this Pokemon as well, just allowing it to give it that +1 speed, something it couldn't do unless it was running a Choice Scarf. But I'm more excited about Swords Dance because it just means that this mon can hang with the top dogs, right? The OU, the top tier Pokemon, because it's bulky enough and has good enough resistances. Not to mention because basically everything's lost Scald besides Volcanion, which is something you shouldn't be setting up on anyway because it hit you with fire moves. This can easily set up on bulky waters, even if they go for Ice Beam, just because it has a natural bulk, and get the +2 and knock them out obviously with the Power Whip, or just do some insanely strong damage to Pokemon coming in after. I love this mon, man, and I'm very happy that they made it a lot better. So even though I talked about Zacian and Zamazenta as well in a previous video when I talked about nerfs, I'm basically including every single legendary that is not a new Pokemon, so I wanted to have them on this list anyway. So Zamazenta got, or Zacian, excuse me, gets a little buff, Trailblaze. Might not even be that little for it because, again, you cannot revenge kill this thing with a Choice Scarf Pokemon that's not Ditto, right? So let's talk about its nerfs real quick because it did get a bunch of nerfs. Intrepid Sword only activates the first time you send it out. So if I switch out and bring it back in, it doesn't get its +1 attack. Pretty big buff for this Pokemon, but Zacian still has 130 on this set, and then the other Zacian obviously has 170. So it's still an incredibly strong Pokemon, still an incredibly fast Pokemon, still a good Pokemon. Regardless of, you know, it's just not maybe immediately broken as it was before. It's still pretty good. Not to mention, they also took -20 attack on this, so it's actually 150 attack instead of, and I believe 150 is, let me just look at this real quick. 150. All right, let me just look at what 150 is real quick. 150, the number. Okay, yeah. Oh, I'm stupid. I'm stupid. It was basically right there before. But 150 is 438 attack. So on no, that doesn't seem right. That's 138 speed. Hold up. 150, and then it has 252. Yes. Okay. That's what a Jolly Nature. So it would be 399. Thank you. Okay, that's Greninja, right? That's big Greninja speed, Battle Bond Greninja. So instead of having 439, it would have, this is its attack stat maxed out, 399. It's a lot weaker. It's obviously a lot weaker than 430. There's a lot weaker, but still good. Can still Swords Dance. Still has really good resistances with both Fairy and Steel. Still decent. Now, this form got -20. The other one got -10 on the attack. Pretty big. But it does have access to Trailblaze as well. And again, it's bulky enough to be able to take advantage of that. It can even get away with an Adamant Nature in that regard. And while it's still relatively fast as well, it's one of the fastest Pokemon out there. And Choice Scarfers can't revenge kill it if you run Trailblaze. Also, a big thing about Trailblaze is that sometimes Quagsire was used in the Ubers tier as a means of dealing with Zacian. So Trailblaze 4 times effective on that, you're smashing it, right? You just Behemoth Blade, if it still has it, or Play Rough for close combat, whatever, into Trailblaze. The big thing about that, again, is the fact that it does raise your speed. So it just becomes a little bit harder to deal with by Choice Scarf means. Not that Choice Scarfers were the way they dealt with this. This mon was, quote-unquote, dealt with defensively, and when people thought that it couldn't be dealt with defensively, they ended up banning it. That's basically what happened to Zacian. Zacian is in the same tier as Mega Rayquaza. It was an anything goes because you can only use it there because anything goes. But ended up getting banned. Now Zamazenta also, this one was dumb. Okay, it lost defense and it lost special defense. Kind of dumb. Like by proxy, it got nerfed. It's not like it was crazy compared to Zacian. It literally wasn't. But it got nerfed. It's like -5 defense or something like that. So not that bad, but they also nerf its ability too, which is it's a big deal, right? You don't get your +2, you don't get your +1, excuse me, defense every single time. It's the same as I think as the last one. When you come in once, you get it the first time you ever get it. If you switch out and come back in, you lose it. That's it. The boost is gone, and it won't come back. Previously, just activated every single time you brought out the Pokemon, you got +1 defense. Every single time you brought out the Pokemon, you got +1 defense. So it doesn't activate like that anymore. Really, really sad. Really sad because they finally gave this Pokemon Body Press. They've introduced Body Press this generation. This is the Pokemon that raises defense. Why the hell did they not give it Body Press? Especially because, did you know that this mon gets Iron Defense? Fighting and Steel is such good defensive. It's really good offensively together. And I mean, this mon has insane stats, right? Like 145 and 145, and then 92 HP is okay. But 128 speed, 130 attack. Like, this mon could have been as impressive as potentially Zacian, right? It was just dark, which is pretty big. It was just dark because of its fighting type. It's neutral versus Fairy because of its Steel type. So, and it hits them obviously super effective with Steel coverage. This mon could have actually been a straight up demon if it had it in Generation 8. But now going into Generation 9, it has this, at least potentially Iron Defense, assuming it still has that plus Body Press. This mon, I think, has a lot of potential just to be like set up, and because it can be really, really, really hard to break. It can be very hard to break. And because Body Press is stab, and the way Body Press works is it goes off your defense. Like, you don't have this particular stat. You have less, but 427 times 2 off a base 80 move. Really, really, really strong. Give Zamazenta a chance to actually be a top dog for once, right? Instead of being behind, I believe, Zacian's sister. So instead of being behind its sister. So, yeah. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Did I speak English there? Let me know your guys' thoughts on the video, on the nerfs, the buffs, mainly the buffs. Obviously, these guys got some nerfs at the end, but mainly the buffs. If you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I'm uploading Pokemon Scarlet and Violet content every single day. When Scarlet and Violet does drop, I got the moveset videos, I got the showdown lives, I got the team building guys, I got the how-tos, I got Wi-Fi battles as well. Give me some time to get some teams together. Obviously, we all need time to get some teams together. But I'm gonna have all that stuff coming out and more. You can use my Best Buy affiliate link if you want to pick up Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, if you want to support me. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.